Tejas, start.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome you all to today's Biochar series from Shekru TV and Toronto Farms collaboration. This is our 19th series, 19th episode of Shekru series. Today, we will be featuring Abhimanyu Rathi from RenewCred, and he'll be sharing with us a very unique story coming out of India and the carbon space of India, carbon markets and carbon space of India. I'll quickly do the introductions. Shekru TV is an online agricultural extension initiative of Shekru Foundation. Shekru TV has been doing online deep dive sessions via Zoom, along with LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, with no registration fee, and doing these on relevant agricultural topics with various stakeholders. Usually, these are long format, an hour and a half sessions where the presenter comes and presents their case, and we have a lot of Q&A sessions. So, 2.0 Farms has partnered with Shekru TV to conduct a biochar specific series, and we are in the 19th episode of this, which itself feels a quite a long way now. And this is a very interesting session because most standards are developed by Western entities, Europeans and Americans, and to be specific. And in some aspects, they show a disconnect from local practices or conditions that are unique to India, or perhaps the rest of the global South, along with India. So we always felt that the standard originating from here, India or the global South, would take into consideration a lot of corner cases, aspects that are very local and cultural to this land. And this is I think, an attempt at that from Abhimanyu and RenewCred. So, quick housekeeping notes. This session is going live in YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. So, viewers watching from these platforms can post your questions and the comment section, and Bibishan will help us collate those and put forward to Abhimanyu after his presentation. So Abhimanyu himself is the founder and CEO of RenewCred, and he's been working with a large team of scientists from the country and Biochar to put forward a credible methodology, not just in biochar, but a few other nature-based solutions, which he'll briefly touch upon, and take us a little bit into his journey of how he began, what it takes to build a firm that not just goes and produces biochar, but sets out the methodology for public consultation right now, and what it takes to build a successful methodology, registry, and issue, and even the basic differences between standard methodology and everything. So, Abhimanyu, thanks very much for joining us today. We are very happy to have you here, especially during your public consultation phase, so that a lot of people get to listen to you and ask you questions directly, and you also get to put the word out there. So yes, without any further delay, the mic is yours, Abhimanyu. Thanks a lot, and look forward to learning about your journey.
Thank you so much, Tejas, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, Shekru TV, 2.0 Farms, for having me over here. And like Tejas has mentioned, it takes some effort to build a registry, standard and registry out of India, and that's exactly what we are going to speak about. So I will just share my presentation. Let me just give me a minute.
Perfect. It's visible.
Awesome. So good evening. Like Tejas has said, my name is Abhimanyu Rathi. I'm the founder of RenewCred. We are a team of about 93 scientists spread across 6 nations. That's the community of scientists we run, along with 24 other folks spread all over India on technology and understanding of the carbon markets of ECM experts. How this session is planned out is I will speak for about 40 to 45 minutes and then we will take up questions. I will answer as many questions as possible, but I hope these recordings are available post I speak as well. So feel free to post your questions to me directly, to the RenewCred team, anywhere you can, even after this recording is done. Because like Tejas has mentioned, this is one of the slightly nuanced and complex topics that we might need more time to go through. One thing before we start, this is a consultation, not an announcement, not an endorsement of RenewCred. Everything I'm about to describe is open for comment right now, and it is open specifically so that people outside the company can tell us where we are wrong. So if you leave today thinking we are right about everything, I have not done my job properly. All right, just a quick agenda on what we are going to talk about. We start with the market itself, what a carbon credit actually is, who buys them, why the market has a trust problem, what the standard and registries do, where have they won, where have they lost, why RenewCred, and then the standard itself is what we are going to speak about. Who is today's presentation for? And I've deliberately kept it very wide. Project developers, buyers of credit, or potential buyers of credit. I know not a lot of Indian entities get into carbon markets from a buyer perspective, but I hope that changes very soon. So this is a presentation for them. This is a presentation for policymakers, researchers, students, members of the public who simply want to understand what carbon markets is. I've assumed there is no prior knowledge. So if you have already worked in carbon markets, please bear with me for the first 15-20 minutes. By the end, you should be able to do four things. Understand how the market works, know what a standard and registry does, understand what we do differently and why, and like they just said, bring in some global south perspectives. You will keep hearing the word global south, it's synonymous for emerging markets like India. So global south means emerging markets, not the southern hemisphere, and know exactly how to file a comment. That is also something we will take through. Yep. So all right. So what is a carbon market? What is the one definition a carbon market is built on? One carbon credit represents 1 ton of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is the common unit that lets us compare different gases. Methane, nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide, all are converted into a single number so as a cook stove or a solar plant can be measured against it. The ton can be different in two different ways, and the distinction matters a lot. There's one family of credits that are called avoidance and reduction. So if I'm avoiding something to something else, suppose I'm using solar instead of fossil fuels, or I'm driving an EV vehicle instead of internal combustion vehicle like petrol or diesel, I'm avoiding my emissions. The other family is called removal, where I'm actually removing CO2 from the atmosphere. Biochar, which we are speaking about, is a classic example. And this distinction matters because the impact on the planet that these different credits have is different. And this is what is reflected in the price of the credit. So if you have ever heard that solar is at $1, whereas biochar is selling at $125, it's because of the impact of these credits have on the planet. For RenewCred, our carbon credit is called the Bharat Carbon Credit. We call it 1 BCC. So 1 BCC is equal to 1 ton of CO2e. It's funny how this name came out because your emails have CC and BCC, and we thought that BCC is a way to just save the planet, and somehow the Bharat word stuck. A quick note again on what is the difference between a compliance and a voluntary market. A compliance market is created by law. So if you are reading news and you have heard Indian government is coming out with a CCTA scheme, it's a compliance market. A government sets a cap. So if I am a company and Tejas is a company and government of India says hypothetically don't emit more than 10 ton and I do 11 and Tejas is 9, I can run to Tejas and say, hey, put my 1 ton in your quota. We are trading emissions, and this is called a compliance market. There's another way of looking at compliance market also where government taxes. So government can say, hey, if you emit more than a certain number, you have to pay a tax. Sweden does that, Colombia does that. This is a compliance market. A voluntary carbon market is more created by trust. Nobody is compelled. Organizations act beyond their legal obligations. And this is where corporate climate pledges meet projects on ground. It is where RenewCred also operates. So that's the difference. Compliance market and voluntary carbon market. And what we are going to discuss today is the voluntary carbon market. Now, why do buyers actually come into voluntary carbon market and who is really writing the checks? And this is important because a lot of people don't realize why are buyers over here. The way I put it is put buyers in two separate buckets. One is who are purely doing it for altruistic reasons, companies with net zero goals, companies doing it beyond their value chain mitigation, funding climate action outside their own footprint so as to declare to the world that they look at climate in a positive angle. And then there are some companies who do it for some regulatory reasons also. On my right hand side, as you can see, who are afraid of it. A credit falls under scrutiny and they want to understand what the credit is. They want to understand the money they are binding, the money they are putting does not have a reputational liability. And this is very important because a lot of carbon projects have not worked out because the project itself were found to be non-ethical, below a certain number, below a science scrutiny. So companies are looking for that. Companies are also trying to understand what are some claims they can get 10 years down the line also, 20 years down the line also. And this is where my previous argument of the difference between avoidance reduction and removal becomes far more important. A removal credit gives benefit to the climate for hundreds and thousands of years because you're removing CO2, whereas an avoidance or reduction credit is just for a particular amount of time. All right, what is a credit life cycle? How exactly does a carbon project look like? And many of you might know this, so I will go quickly. Somebody designs, there's an 8-step process. So somebody designs the activity, and this is put against a published methodology. So what is a methodology? A set of rules against which your carbon credits will be issued. Who writes these rules? We'll come to that in a minute, but standards and registries write the rule. So a project is designed again a set of published methodology. Now don't this I would rather simplify this. Anybody who is trying to save the world in a climate positive way, their entire project can be considered a designed project. Then a third party validates it. They say, hey, this is making sense or not. Are you really saving the world or are you not saving the world? So if you're following news today, there's an entire argument around ethanol E20. Does ethanol do more emissions or does ethanol do less emissions? And the entire world is somehow trying to validate the facts. That's validation. Then the third step that happens is somebody you have to use either manual or digital monitoring. You monitor the reductions. So that's called a monitoring method. And most project developers do it themselves. You must have heard of biochar project developers saying, hey, we saved 500 tons of CO2 this month. A solar person will say, we saved 100 tons of CO2 this month. This is all monitoring and this is their reporting them. Then again, the same validation body comes and verifies whether this really happened or not. All of this goes to a standard registry that issues the credit. Somebody buys the credit, and then these credits are retired. So carbon market is pretty much like a share market with an only difference that the buyers go back to the registry and say, hey, retire this against my name. I have emitted X ton. You can retire it against my name. And this is where the word standard and registry becomes important. Standard is writing all the rules of the market. Register is maintaining the register of the market. Who bought the credit, how it transacted, when it retired. That's registry. So this is very important for us to remember. So what is the problem? And the market's central problem is rooted more in science rather than the way projects are imagined. There are four big problems or four big elements that we need to remember how the market works. The first and the biggest problem is what is called additionality. Would this project have happened anyway without credit revenue? So it's called business as usual activity. Suppose I was setting up a solar plant or I was doing biochar and I was using the biochar for my own use and selling it across for a profit. That's not additional. You're not really saving the world. So that's additionality. Second problem that we face from a scientific value is the projects are over credited. If your science is not robust, the standard is not robust, you will end up giving more number of credits than what it was originally accounted for. The third problem is double counting. Sometimes project developers register the same project with two different registries. Very similar to like you can have insurance from two different insurance companies. And if you fall sick, you might give your claim to two different parties. That's called double counting. You don't want to double count it. There's a double counting element on compliance and voluntary market also. If you're already making a claim in the compliance market, you can't make that claim in the voluntary market. And it's more nuanced, but that's the way that's one of the problems that we are facing with CCTS as well. And the final is permanence, which is more solid with removals that I spoke about. How long are you removing the carbon? Is it really going to affect or not? And the consequences are measurable, which depend on price, which also depend which kind of buyers come to you. Some buyers have a temporary problem they are trying to solve. They're not really looking at a long-term goal from climate. They will end up buying your avoidance and reduction credits. Some buyers are in it for the long goal, and they will end up buying your removal credits. So this is how prices matter. This is how buyers matter in a voluntary carbon market. Now, what is a standard? I already spoke about this. A standard is really a rule book. It decides three things: what counts, how it is measured, and who checks it. I will remember what counts, how it is measured, and who checks it. It also defines the eligibility, what may enter at all. So taking an example of RenewCred, today we have rejected 88% of the projects that have come to us. Why did we reject them? Additionality was not met, baseline was not clear, quantification of credits were not clear, the projects was too early in their life cycle. A lot of people say, hey, we are thinking about setting up a biochar plant when we will do 1 year later. So that might not be a good time to come to us. MRV is not there, safeguards are not there. So these are all the reasons how we define eligibility. Underneath a standard. So standard is the broad document you write, which the standard and registry writes. Think of it like a big legal document which governs all the rules and methodologies. A methodology is a subset of a standard. So standard is like, hey, this is how RenewCred defines additionality. This is how RenewCred will do the baseline monitoring. These are the MRV parameters. Methodology is very specific to say biochar or solar or CBG or methane. So methodology is a subset of a standard. A methodology is more like a per technology recipe, if you want to think it that way. The rule book sets the bar once, and each methodology follows that rule book. And as we speak right now, like Tejas also pointed out, RenewCred's standard and methodology are in public consultation. You can go to renewcred.com, you can read the entire standard, you can read the methodology as well. What is a registry? And like I said, a registry is a ledger. Ledger, you maintain all the records of how these credits are being transacted. There's a serial number. This is very unique to every ton. So in case of RenewCred, we have taken all of this data and put it on a blockchain layer. Why blockchain? Because when you put the data on blockchain, nobody can tamper around it. Nobody can play around it. So we use something called an Algorand blockchain, which itself is climate positive. So that's where our data sits. It records the ownership of every transfer between accounts. Now, in a carbon credit market, it's not necessary, and this is important to note, it's not necessary that the end buyer will always buy the carbon credits. Sometimes there are brokers and traders also involved. And that is why I say this is a lot like a share market. I might sell to Tejas, Tejas might sell to Anant, Anant might sell to Aditya, Aditya might sell to Pawan Kumar will sell to Ranjit, and finally Ranjit, some a company XYZ company will buy from Ranjit. And over here, there's some pricing also goes ups and down. The trades happening. The registry maintains the ledger. The registry knows where it is moving because you have to change your name over there. So standard and registry have a very important role to play in that sense. Okay. A registry credits irreversibly named, and we call it the beneficiary. The beneficiary's name goes over there. Yeah. So the table that you can see on your right, that's the kind of a nomenclature we follow on having a unique name behind it. And at RenewCred, we have said we won't do any anonymous naming. All the names have to be compulsorily there. So we won't write anonymous against our credit. We want to let the world know we want to live for super transparency, and that's exactly what we are trying to do. So now you know what a standard registry does. You know how standard registry operates. You know the main stakeholders. So we will come back and see who are what role a stakeholder plays. Project developers design and set up the project. So if you're doing biochar, you're doing methane reduction, you're doing solar, you're a project developer. Sometimes there is somebody who aggregates a lot of project developer because registries have some charge they have to pay the project developer, and sometimes the ROIs don't make sense. So if you have a very small farm, say 1 hectare farm or 1 acre farm, and there is some fee that needs to be paid to the standard and registry, The ROI, the return you get from credits might not make sense. Might not. I am putting it out as a caveat. Depends on the business model of the registry. So aggregator comes to you and says, hey, I will collect hundreds of these farmers, make a big project out of this, and then go to the project developer. And suddenly the economics kinds of make sense. And this is debatable. How much money the end farmer finally gets, what are the cuts in the entire ecosystem, and we will talk about that too in the following slides. There's one more step behind this, which is called an investor or sustainable finance. These could be public institutions, these could be private parties who fund a project. But all of these put together are put into the category of a project developer. Next comes the standards and the registries. And now you know what role the standards and registries play. So I call them the third party in the business. Then comes the fourth party in the business. The first party is the supplier or project developer. Second party is the buyer. Third party is the standard registry. The fourth party is the verification, validation and verification body. And we just spoke about that. They validate whether this projects make sense. They collect all the data and submit the data to the registries. And there are different ways on how different standard registries appoint the validators also. And there are some problems also behind it. We'll speak about that. And then the verification happens on a yearly or a 6 monthly or in once in 2 years, depending on whatever rule the standard registry sets. And this is on ground verification because somebody has to go to the ground and verify whether the credit claim was really made or not. Next comes a very interesting stakeholder that has just emerged over the last 3 or 4 years called a rating agency. Now, a buyer wants to buy a lot of credits from your project, but the buyer will say, hey, the standard registry seems to have done their work, the VVB seems to have done their work. I still want to send somebody and see how good this project is. And these are your fifth party. They will come to you, they will evaluate you. Only today morning, I heard a news that one of the rice methane project developers in India was rated A by a rating agency called Silvera. And there are just three right now rating agencies, the big ones, Silvera, B0, and KLX. So they come and rate the project. They add to more confidence to the buyer. So one recurring theme you will see again and again and again is the buyer wants a lot of confidence in what they are trying to buy. Is this real or not? And there have been a lot of scandals in the carbon market. That is what buyer is trying to solve for. Finally, you have marketplaces, you have exchanges, you have placement services, you have brokers and traders I spoke about. And then there is something called Article 6 also. We won't get into depths of that, but Article 6 is in the very plain words, one nation trying to sell to another nation the projects, but keeping the end result or the benefit to its account. So all of that stuff. So this is how different stakeholders are involved into a carbon market. All right, now, how are incentives designed and integrity designed in it? Who pays whom? Who picks the checker, and what happens in this entire market? So first, we'll talk about fees, and this is a big problem in the global voluntary carbon market. With most registries, you pay for the number of credits you issue. So if you're issuing, say, 100 credits, hypothetically saying you end up paying $100. But if you issue 1,000 credits, you end up paying $1,000. Now, this makes a little less sense because if registries have to be the stakeholders or stake bearers of the market, they should not be incentivized for the project developer generating more credits. Yeah, it's a conflict of interest because if the project developer generates more credits, the registry gets paid more. Obviously, they are always going to support the project developers and the science won't be rigorous. So that's the first problem in the carbon market. The second problem in the carbon market is who chooses that fourth party, the verifier. If I, as a project developer, am directly talking to the verifier and I'm asking the verifier to come and verify my project, Tejas is my friend. I will just call Tejas and say, hey, Tejas, you know what? We are setting up a project. I want your signatures. You know this doesn't work well. So again, this is a design problem in the carbon market today. And the third problem is a lot of these methodologies are very closed, and that is how we begin our narrative. A lot of these don't make sense for the global south. Let me take biochar as one example. Let me take an easier example. Mangroves in Sundarban are not the same as mangroves in Gujarat. They are geographically different, they act different, their carbon sequestration is different, their atmosphere is different, the sunlight is different, the topology is different. How can we use the same methodology? So these are very closed. Second, a lot of innovation is happening in India. Terracotta based cooling, Indian Council for Agriculture Research making Haridhara to bring the cattle methane down. Somebody is creating algae based carbon removal. Where are the methodologies? So these are three structural problems in the carbon market. Yeah. So this is what we set out to solve, and I will talk more about it too. But RenewCred, just repitching ourselves, we are a technologies-enabled standard and registry, and we are the first ones, one of the first ones to do that in the global south. I won't say the only first one of the first ones, but from a technology-enabled point of view, the first one. We write the rules as a standard, we run the ledger as a registry, and we are also one of the ones that have created our own DMRV, Digital Monitoring, Reporting and Verification. Now, please don't quote me on the full form because some people also call it Digital Measurement, Reporting and Verification. And if you're in the climate world, it's full of jargons. So I've started calling it DMMRV these days. But most of the registries stop at reporting and a bit of verification. They don't monitor or measure. Yeah, and you see now this is the fourth problem we are getting into. If the standard registries don't monitor or measure the data directly, how do they know that the data is pure? This is not possible. They are relying on third-party DMRV. So we said let's build our own DMRV stack also. Let's start closing all the loops right now. Yeah. And once again saying all of this, what I'm saying, all the standards, all the methodology, all the rule books are in public consultation. I want all of you to go and comment and tell me where I'm wrong. Let's talk about one more problem, and this is the trust discount, as I call it. Credits emerging from credits coming from emerging markets, and this is some work we have done, and I can share the study with you. Roughly trade at 28% discount to credits coming from advanced economies. So an Indian credit from an Indian biochar versus say an American biochar. Indian biochar is trading at 100, $105. And American biochar is still trading at 150, 165 now dollars. What is this discount pricing actually? It is not quality of the projects. India has the feedstock. India has the project. India has the emerging talent. Some of the best in the world. Then why aren't we getting this price right now? What India has lacked is its own homegrown infrastructure. People, standard, registries, rating companies also. That's a big opportunity right now in India because hey, there's no rating agency in India. These systems are not built over here. So there is no accountability. And we rely on emission factors that are set by people who are not in India. We rely on permanence factors that are not set by Indian conditions. So this is what we really need to solve for. And I already spoke about this DMRV thing. Most standards write rules because projects ask them to report, not because they have to measure the supply chain also. So we built our own DMRV. It's called the Net Zero platform. It continuously measures. So in case of biochar, starting from your feedstock weight to pressure temperature conditions of the vessel, both artisanal as well as industrial. And I will talk about prices, and we have done this at the lowest unimaginable value that the world would have seen. Completely tamper free evidence. We collect all of that. We collect all the data on our DMRV, and we also provide project developers with a social impact dashboard that they can use and tell the world what impact it created beyond just emissions. What SDGs were covered, how much employment was provided. We would do all of that too. So the practical consequences of monitoring is now you get a largely populated data set, all the data that you can go and pitch to the buyer and say, hey boss, this is the impact we really created on the world. And I'm very proud to say that we are the only registry to do that today. Another thing that we have done is we only work with projects that have a DMRV component to it. Now we need to understand the difference between MRV and DMRV over here. MRV is when you are collecting data manually. Okay, so suppose I talk about a far better example. Let me talk about credits for EV vehicles. Now in an MRV environment, somebody will come to your premise, check how many kilometers the vehicle traveled in a register, and then issue the credit. In a DMRV environment, How many kilometers the vehicle traveled is digitally seen, is practically seen. So that's the difference. And you see all the loopholes are closed. There's more trust when there is more DMRV. What we have also done is, apart from the methodology, we also provide what we call code as a source. So you can run the, you can, as a project developer, you can put all your data into that code and see how many credits and get the projections also. So all of these features are also built in the RenewCred methodology. Another thing, and this is one problem that I spoke about, is project developers get to choose verifiers sometimes. And I spoke about, hey, if Tejas is my friend. One thing that we have done in RenewCred is, under our projects, we have created a blind pool for verifiers. So we have a few verifiers we work with, and we're increasing the number of verifiers. They sit in a blind pool. All projects pay a same single fee which goes into the pool. Okay, so if Anand sir is doing a project, or if Tejas is doing a project, and these can be different projects, one can be solar and one can be biochar, they both pay a similar fee which goes into the pool, and from the pool, randomized VVBs are appointed to go and collect and monitor the project. And these are all powered by our DMRV. Now, because they are powered by the DMRV, 80% of the job is already done for the verifiers. They have to go and cross verify the claims under the ISO 14064 protocol. What this does is, number one, reduces costs drastically. But number two, completely eliminates a project developer talking to a verifier and closing the loop of any kind of, for a lack of a better word, mischief happening over there. So this is another thing that we have baked into our methodologies. Yeah. So there are four pillars of independence, like we call it. Number one, and this I did not speak about, but at RenewCred, we have a complete flat fee. You generate one credit, or you generate 1 lakh credit, or you generate 1 crore credit, or you don't do anything, you pay a complete flat fee that is 100% decoupled from volumes. And it's one of the lowest fees in the world. We are just charging $6,000 or 6 lakh for an entire year. Compared to other registries, this is about 4x cheaper. The standard earns nothing when you credit more issues, credits are issued. Methodologies are completely open, similar to all other standards as well. So anyone can read, anyone can also run the code. You can take the source code from us, you can run the code. There's a science governing council with a completely independent majority on how everything works. So science is not decided by the people selling the service. We have ring fences completely. All internal functions are also ring fenced. And each of these, so what we have really tried to do is, we have tried to remove this, how do you say, temptation to overcredit completely in entire systems build. So today, if tomorrow, if the founders, if tomorrow Abhimanyu Rathi is no longer a part of RenewCred, the system will keep it fair and transparent. That is what we are trying to do. Speaking about our pricing philosophy quickly, before the numbers, before the principle, nothing in our fee model grows when more credits are issued. I just spoke about that. Completely flat fees, again decoupled. A mandatory fee, why do we collect it? Because anyhow, we have to put in some human resource and scientists and people to calculate the credits. So we completely can't commit to zero. But we've tried to put it on the global south and benchmark it accordingly. So these are the two flat fees that I was speaking about. DMRV part is still optional. So you only pay 3 lakh rupees a year if you're registering the project. If you want to take the MRV, and if you don't have any other MRV, that's another 3 lakh rupees. So this is how we are looking at right now. No per credit levy, no percentage of issuance, no success fee. Everything is identical, super easy to pay. I also spoke about one of the things that project developers face it very difficult to register to issue new methodologies. So there's an entire system of writing new methodologies with RenewCred also. Again, I won't get into very specific price points, but it more or less comes down to completely free over a certain period of time for them. Now talking about standards, coming to standards quickly, because I spent about some time on doing that. There are four layers of standard. At the top is the standard, the constitution, which sets the principles and everything is written under it. Now, Below this master standard, there are 12 modules that we have covered. So RenewCred methodologies are very modular in nature. If you want to build your new methodology, you can pick up these modules and write your own methodology also. So the 12 things that we spoke about is eligibility, whether this is eligible or not, whether this is additional or not. Are the baseline analysis done according to a certain set of rules or not? Are leakages accounted for? What is leakage? I set up a forest in Bangalore, but it was so dense that it created an earthquake in Bangalore. That's leakage. So leakages are accounted for or not. And I'm simplifying a lot of concepts over here. MRV and data integrity talks about quantification, how do we do uncertainty, permanence. So these are all the topics that are covered in the standard. This is the hard work that a standard also puts behind before issuing the credit. So a lot of people come to say, hey, what has that standard got to do? Yeah, I was doing the hard work. Why is the credits not being issued to me? So this is the hard work that the standard has to put behind it. Let's quickly talk about buffer pools. So what are buffer pools? And this is something important from a biochar point of view. So if you're generating X number of credit, most methodologies will put a small percentage aside. They say, hey, if your project does not deliver in the future, then we are going to use that insurance pool that we're going to bring credits from that buffer pool. So suppose your project generated 100 credits every year and you did an offtake agreement with a buyer to deliver 500 credits. On the fifth year, it was found that you were only able to deliver 70 credits or 80 credits. That buffer pool comes into use. Now, what has RenewCred done separately with some of their standard registries? The buffer pool is common. So if I did a project and Tejas did a project, then the buffer pool is a summation of all the pools. Now the problem over there is if I was a bad project, for a lack of a better word, and Tejas was a good project, Tejas is subsidizing my buffer pool. He did not do anything wrong, but he's subsidizing my buffer pool. We said let's not do that. Let's look at buffer pools separately. So that's 5% buffer pool. The concept of buffer pool only and only applies to removals. There is no concept of buffer pool in a reduction and avoidance credit because these are spontaneous credits for a spontaneous activity. In a removal, there is permanence associated to the long-term removal over there. Yeah, and then the next comes and the most spoken about topic in the carbon market is additionality. What is additionality? How do you test for additionality? So we have three gates for additionality. Gate number one is regulatory surplus. The activity goes beyond what law already requires, or if the law compels it, credit revenue is what cost it. You have to understand if you are doing something because the government asked you to do, then there are no credits for it because it's a regulatory requirement. So you're really given credits for something that came out of your own sense of protecting the climate in some sense, not because of government pressure on you. The second thing is it should not be a common practice. So again, I will use the EV example because it's very well. Today, the EV penetration in India is 12%. So credits can be given. Now, if this increases to 30%, it becomes business as usual activity. So then there are no carbon credits. A lot of people come to us and say, hey, can we get carbon credits for cycling? And then we are always in our two minds. Should cycling be given carbon credits or not? And then the third gate, which is the most spoken about, is what is the demonstrated barrier, financial, technological, or institutional? Is this project already making money without carbon credits? Then carbon credit might not be possible. Are there technological barriers that are preventing carbon credits? If not, then carbon credits might not be possible. So there's a lot of additionality uh, requirements that we need to surpass before providing the credits. Already spoken about verification, but I will quickly speak this that under verification also, and not a lot of people might know this, there is a 5% materiality bar. This comes from ISO 140643, which sets the verification standards. So 5% materiality bar means if the claims are deviating by under 5%, then they are admitted. But if the claims are over 5% deviation, then the claims are not admitted by the project developer. Yeah. Okay, so uh, I said I will speak, not get deeper into it, something called as Article 6. So Article 6 is one project selling to another nation. India has signed two Article 6 agreements, South Korea and Japan. Now, we as a registry or a standard registry don't provide this Article 6 transfer. What we really provide is labeling of Article 6. So if somebody is working with government, the point I'm really trying to make is RenewCred standards and methodologies are Article 6 compliant. So if you're working with government and you're making inter-government transfers, you can use RenewCred's methodologies also over there. Safeguards. What have we put into as far as safeguards is concerned, and how do we talk about social development goals? So first is do not harm. They're applied to every activity. We are looking for SDGs. We are looking for free, prior, and informed consent wherever communities are affected. So I'll repeat the words: free, prior, and informed consent wherever communities are affected. As a project developer, you have to provide supporting documents around that. The development contribution statement is that every project states its exceptional social and development benefits. And we are trying to work around this because at early stage, measuring SDG goals also is very difficult. So we're building all those frameworks around it and how to do those measurement. They are examined for accuracy and possibility by the verifiers, not by the magnitude of it. So nobody is asking how many people you saved. But what the real question is, have you put in some mechanisms on providing these SDG goals or not? Let me simplify this further. Did biochar creation activity led to air pollution reduction somewhere? And did you measure it? Did you employ a lot of women on your fields? Was any kind of water benefit being provided? Because biochar is a great water disinfectant also in some sense because of its high absorption capacity. So this is all which is calculated by the standards. All right, moving to the next part quickly. We have written 7 methodologies. Like I said, these are the 7 on your screen: biochar, cook stove, methane, electric vehicles, and solar. Talking about why biochar, biochar leads our removal thinking for one reason. And one reason, its permanence is chemistry that you can measure. So biochar is a lot based on chemistry. The chain is very simple. Crop residue that would have otherwise been burnt or decayed goes into pyrolysis, forms into a stable form, and that goes into the soil. Compare this to say something like a forestry removal, where permanence is a promise. Because with forests, I don't know the quality of soil, I don't know the quality of seed, I don't know the quality of atmosphere. I can't put an IoT every time inside a tree and expect a tree to tell me how much carbon is sequestered. So that's why we took a bet on biochar. And I think over the last 18 months or so, India is also going through its biochar renaissance. We are seeing a lot of projects come in biochar these days, both on the artisanal as well as industrial part. So that's our take on biochar. Again, it people confuse and call biochar a fertilizer. It's not a fertilizer. It's a soil enrichment product. It has high adsorption. So we have two concepts in science: absorption, adsorption. Adsorption allows water to be retained for a longer time, which will reduce your NPK load, but it won't completely substitute for a fertilizer. But what it really does is agricultural waste is a big carbon chain and it brings down all that carbon together and you're putting it in soil. So hence carbon removal. That's how biochar works. Yeah. Now the most important, and I'm pretty sure this must have been covered, but one of the most important ratio that governs both the eligibility and durability of biochar is the molar ratio of hydrogen to organic compound, commonly known as the HC ratio. And this is where we determine how many carbon credits are also issued. So raw biomass is full of hydrogen carbon bonds, like it's just agricultural waste converted into biochar. As you heat it without oxygen, which is pyrolysis, hydrogen and oxygen drive off. And the carbon that remains reinfuses into an aromatic chain. I'm sorry, I'm going a little technical, but trying to understand how this works. This aromatic chain is nothing but densely concentrated soil microbes, which will not break it up. So, adsorption, I said, when there's microbes, it won't break it up and hold the carbon for a longer. And this is why biochar has a long permanence when you put it in the soil. Now, there are various ways to measure it. You measure it using in situ devices, or you send it to a lab and get your HC report done. In situ devices are preferred even with RenewCred. Now, anything above 0.7 is not real biochar conversion. And this is why artisanal credits are seen different from industrial. In industrial, you get a better quality of biochar versus artisanal, but you still get carbon credits out of it. So the HC ratio about 0.7 is not the best, and I've given this chart over here. Anything between 0.4 to 0.7 is known as the standard class. The most of our Indian biochar, we can say, lies over here. And below 0.4 is a high class, high quality biochar. This also determines the number of credits you get per biochar. So a lot of people put this back of the maths envelope. One third of the feedstock is biochar, and 1 ton of biochar will give you 2 or 2.5 credit. But will it be 1.8 credit or 2.5 credit? Is it 33% or 28%? All of that is determined by HC ratio. This is how we look at it. Now, in Indian conditions, we understand that the machines are different and production lines are different. Let me just change the slide. And everything is different. So this is why we went deeper into understanding the machines used in India. Quantities, mid-techs, high-techs. And we realized that industrial pyrolysis happens at about close to 550 degree continue both for continuous and batch. Mid technology at around 500 degrees, and for cleans it comes even lower. And then we created our methodologies corresponding to that to not put project developers at a problem, but also provide the buyers a certain advantage on understanding the projects. Okay, so I will repeat this once again. There are three kinds of biochar production. One, you do it industrial pyrolysis machines, and the capex over there is very high. The quality of biochar tends to be better than the other two, but the pyrolysis conditions are about 550 degrees Celsius is what we figured out. Obviously, the residence time for how long you cook the biochar also matters over here. Then comes the mid-tech machines, which is a mix of your Contiki and the industrial machine. And you see a lot of these in India. You get mid-tech machines for as low as 10 lakh rupees for 780 TPD also in India. And then finally you have your Contikis, which are anywhere from half a ton to 1 ton, and you can make them for anywhere from 25 to 35,000 rupees. The HC ratio is not the best with these compared to the other two. And we have created our methodologies to account for all of these parameters also. And the mid-tech is the system which we at RenewCred call the missing middle. Most biochar methodologies are written for either continuous or batch plants on the industrial scale, but and some have now emerged for artisanal also. But this was the missing middle, the mid-tech systems we've accounted for. And as you read our methodologies, you will understand deeper on how we try to account for mid-tech more and more better. This is artisanal, very famous in India. A lot of farmers have been doing artisanal work for I don't know about 100, 200 years, and they've now started calling it biochar for the last 5 years. In various ways, they were doing it. Even what you say, ash farming is an example of biochar generation only. We do what is called an uncertainty deduction in a lot of these, because with artisanal the DMRV is not very robust, so we have put some uncertainty deduction parameters. You will find more details in our standards, but the point I'm really trying to make is we have created a lot of these depending on Indian conditions or emerging economic conditions to credit the carbon credits to the highest value possible for the project developer without nullifying the science. So this is what we have done. We can skip that. I was just doing a comparison between buffer and this. I'll quickly talk about our other methodologies also, and I will quickly come to the point that we have tried to be as conservative as possible, but safeguarding both the project developers and the buyer science. So in cook stoves, there's a concept called non-renewable biomass or NFRB. There have been a lot of discussion around how cook stove should be credited. We are creating our own models, the spectacle models, to determine how many credits a cook stove project should be credited. Same conservative analysis applies to CBG also. CBG is compressed biogas, where uh, you get, because it deals with methane. For methane abatement, you get 3 tons of credit, but if it leaks, it leads to 9 tons of leakage. So I won't go into the maths, but we have put some safeguards over there, and we say, hey, if the leakage crosses more than 15%, it is harming the planet and not really saving it. And so no credits will be issued over there. And a lot of so when you read our standards, there's a document called parameter register. So you will get all of these numbers in one single document called the parameter register. I know this can be boring, this can be fun, this can be on whatever line of thought you're sitting in, but that's how you save the world. Electric vehicles, again, a lot of people come to us and say, hey, the batteries also emit something. There is some emission that goes in battery creation and the vehicle creation. And yes, all of that have been accounted for in the RenewCred methodology, depending on what kind of batteries are in use, what vehicle it is, what is the grid margin, all of that stuff. For solar as well, we've accounted for the same purposes, which we call embodied emissions. We've taken a certain number, which is 45 grams of CO2 per kilowatt, and same applies to livestock. So we have been very conservative, but we have created these methodologies for the Indian environment. Yep, I'm coming to very getting closer and closer to the end. So, like I said, I started with the promise. All of this stuff, it might be a little technical, is available on our website, renewcred.com. Click standard or directly go to standard.renewcred.com. You can read all of this stuff. You can go to public consultation, click a link, give your public consultation comments, or you can also download a template over there. Just download it as an Excel, put your comments, re-upload it. There are both the options to do it with your name or anonymously, whatever you're comfortable with. Please submit your comments so that we can create this close to bulletproof methodologies for the world. For the world is important because we are not just serving India. We've also taken up projects in Nairobi and now UK as well. So yeah, in closing, we spoke about 5 things. I was given about 50 minutes. So trust is the infrastructure. This is what we are talking about mainly. We're talking about we need to measure first, and then the blind verification comes in. There's a flat fee, and everything is ruled by science. So yeah, I hope I was able to do some justice to this topic. I'll take a pause here. Happy to take all the questions.
Wonderful. Thanks, Abhimanyu. I mean, it's really brought down to make it easier for the Shekru TV public, but also you went to the depths and really walked us through a lot of important steps. I mean, I'm sure I have a bunch of questions, but I know everyone watching here have a lot more too. So, for everyone out there, I'm sure you have a lot of questions. If you are joining us from Zoom, you will be able to unmute yourself and ask your question directly to Abhimanyu. You could also post that on the chat window. And people that are joining us from various other platforms like YouTube, LinkedIn, please put your questions on the comment section in that platform, and Bibishan will help us collate all the questions and put them in front of Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu, I'll start off. Like, what goes behind this, and how is this even done, and how is this even possible?
Yeah, no, no. What gets goes behind this is a lot of learning from the markets, first of all. More, I'm answering from a philosophical point of view, then I will come to science. So a lot of learning from the market, what worked, what did not work, what should have worked but was never incorporated. So trying to jot that down. We have spent about 2 years in creating these standards. So while we are positioned as a startup, we are a science company end of the day. A lot of knowledge comes from the scientists that we work with every now and then. I spoke about a science governing council, but there are a lot of other scientists in the background that they do their work every day and night. A lot of literature study also, and then trying to understand and talking to the project developers in India. My personal journey, it's been 18 years now in carbon markets, so that also accounted for a lot of this. So a lot of literature study, a lot of questioning the market, and then coming to the science part of it. Running simulations, running models, testing out with Python code at sometimes because we want to run a lot of numbers, writing the linear regression model. So to summarize in a very simplistic term, any methodology has four parts to it. The baseline analysis, the life cycle. Baseline is what you're comparing it to. EV versus IC, solar versus thermal. Biochar, you're not comparing, you're looking at how much CO2 was put into the depths of the earth. Then is the life cycle analysis, any embodied emissions that happen. Then is material analysis also, and I spoke about materiality. That is different, but material analysis is, if again, part of the embodied LC analysis only. But what is the emission that happened in making this solar panel also? That also is accounted for over here. And then we take all of these numbers, we take all the international study numbers and create a linear regression model around it. So that's what goes into a methodology. This was only the science part. The heavier part is tech also. How do you bring down costs? So I said we have done it in one of the cheapest ways. For an entire industrial biochar, we can set up the entire tech hardware for as low as 30,000 rupees. And a lot of this hardware is created internally, which includes your wiring, your thermocouples, your sensors, your SIM card data that is pulled out, because not a lot of these have access to Wi-Fi also. So all of that at under 25, 30,000 rupees. For artisanal, it's much lower, because if artisanal is created for 25,000, it has to be just a certain percentage of it. I think we are doing it for about 3,000, 4,000 rupees only right now, further reducing the costs. So tech and this has gone very well, and along with that, beautiful dashboards, getting data seamlessly. So a lot of sleepless nights goes into it.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Uh,
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you is, you know that there's a lot of players in this. I mean, a lot of different aspects of work that goes into it, and the the point of how much and who does how many tasks. Like for example, you're providing DMRV as well. You're giving the standard methodology also out there. So what's your thinking about which ones you would want to put inside the package and which ones do you want to put out? For example, you talked about VVB and how you create a blind group and randomly assign someone for a project. Is there a conflict of interest or is there not? Or if there is in the other model as to providing the
Yeah.
DMR themselves, because some project developers are making their own DMRV. And how would this look when you will have to customize the DMRV to 100, 200, 500 different project developers as opposed to what you are starting out now with, where you have a very few project developers? Because feedstock changes, location changes, the specifics of each project changes. So DMRV would also need to be customized and ensure that it is always on track to being the best possible way to prove that chain of custody, especially for biochar projects. So how do you address that, approach that, and how do you see yourself different from other methodologies which don't necessarily provide a DMRV?
Yeah. So the fundamental question you're asking is conflict of interest and then working at scale with a lot of DMRV setting up. See, there would have been a conflict if we were not really relying on the core data that is coming to us, because then we don't even know where the data is produced. Number one, whatever data comes to us, we don't have the ownership of the data. It is still the project developer data. And number three is, in global south at least, or in India, a lot of these projects become expensive in what I call administrative costs. Not for the matter they want to save the world, but for whatever the other charges they have to pay to save the world, to show that they save the world. So this includes your registry charges, registration charges, per credit charges, and DMRV charges. And fourth thing is, I spoke about ring fencing a lot of this. So RenewCred Tech Services is completely ring fenced to RenewCred Science Services. These are two separate bodies completely led by two separate individuals. So it's a ring fenced in some sense. What we are doing is we are providing a affordable but robust solution to the project developer, which they can optionally use. There is no hard and fast that they have to use this DMRV only, which we can optionally use and provide us the data stream, because then we can bundle it all together in a blockchain enabled data set and sell to the buyer. So there is no conflict of interest per se as such, because of the optionality of it. Now we know a biochar needs a certain set of answering a second part of question. We know biochar needs a certain set of parameters, not more than that. We know solar needs a certain set of parameter. Any customization either comes at cost, or we let the project developer know we might not be the best party to do that. So customization is also limited and available, and because everything we redo at RenewCred is standardized, you get this, you get this, you get this, and you get this. So customization again is not at all a challenge for us. And I also mentioned about the social impact dashboard that also takes care of a lot of data that the project developers sometime need. So yeah, this is how we're solving for it.
Makes sense. Just one last question before taking it from others. Like, at what stage do the project developers start working with a new methodology, standard registry? And the other part of it is, who buys now from RenewCred, and when does that start? And what is your strategy to take, hopefully, a lot of projects that onboard to RenewCred to the buyers? How has that sentiment been? What have they been telling to you when it comes from the buyer side of it?
Yeah. So when should they start working? If it's a new project, the commissioning has not yet happened. Ideally, the good time is to come to us 75 to 60 days before commissioning, so that feasibility test can be quickly run. And we are using a lot of AI agents, so we our turnaround time is very fast. On feasibility, we get back in 3 to 4 days max. For PDD, which is another headache for a lot of project developers, again, thanks to AI, we're using AI agents. They can dump their data. First versions of PDDs are created, and then they can start working on something basic to go about, so that we can nullify the use of, not completely eliminate, but nullify the use of our friends called consultants also in the market. So anywhere between 60 to 75 days is a good point. If you're already out there, then please come to us immediately. Would love to issue credits together. Love to work together. Um, yeah. Second, I think you were asking the scale question, if I'm not wrong.
I mean, the buyer side of it.
Buy side
Like,
of it, yeah. Yeah.
in at some point, RenewCred has to issue those first credits and get
Yeah.
the first buyers buying these credits from the RenewCred registry. So,
Yeah.
how has been the reception so far? And I mean, if we just want to know what the sneak peek is, what the journey would be like in there, so that the project developers can complete that loop of creating, getting these issued, and hopefully a path to selling those credits.
So at RenewCred, to give you some numbers, we have about 22 project developers that have signed some form of an MOU or LOI with us. Seven of them are in various stages of carbon credit issuance. Three are nearing carbon credit issuance now. When I say issuance, obviously this will take into consideration the promulgated standard. So standard will become live from 15th August onwards, and they will be subjected to it. But some form of tech integration is already complete. We're looking at first issuances on around 21st of September. That's the aim. It's the zero emission day on 21st September. So you want to commensurate it in some sense. So that's on the project developer part. And we are onboarding not just for 7 methodologies that we have written, but we are happy to work with newer methodologies also under the what we call Frontier Markets program. If you are proposing a new methodology, you can come and work with RenewCred. More than happy to write with you. The costs, no royalty, no per credit, nothing. Just let's go and save the world together. On the buyer side, one is a fact and one is a critical insight. The fact is, and let me be very honest about it, nobody in India is buying carbon credits today. I think depending on various numbers, only 700, 800 credits were bought in India last year. And now the Indian government has also come up with an what they call an offset mechanism, or the other word for voluntary carbon market. That might open up the market a little bit. How much will it or when it will be, I don't know. Most of the buyers right now continue to be European and American companies. That's where we are seeing, especially there are some centers within Europe, London to name one. A lot of buying activity happens. We're getting good reception from buyers, because they want to get into innovative projects. They want to understand what is it from the global south from a supply term. And a critical insight is this: four things matter. How robust is the science? What is the team backing the project? What is the quality of project, and whether there is a DMRV or not? So science, quality of project, team backing the project. And when I say team, all the registry and the project team and the VVB backing the project, and whether there's a DMRV or not. And DMRV because it provides more assurance to the buyer. And these four things are in order. A lot of buyers want to buy credits from India as well. So we are getting good reception. We are getting a lot of calls from international buyers. Everybody's super excited, and we are a little nervous to be honest. Yeah.
That's good. Amazing. Uh, Sandeep, Sankal Kulkarni, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can. Yeah.
Hi. First of all, great presentation, and thank you so much for exposing all of us to this new stream, this new business model for farmers, basically. And so basically, we are from the animal sector, animal industry, animal feed manufacturing. In poultry, there is something, ammonia is emitted quite a lot, right? So are there any standards currently that will help, that will track the reduction of ammonia? And would
Yeah.
that be eligible for carbon credit?
We haven't written one so far. Are there with other standard registries? Yes, I believe there are. We are thinking about it. We are in the process of writing it. We would love to work with design partners to help us understand this better. But at RenewCred, we just have for methane right now.
Okay, methane from livestock right now.
Livestock methane, yeah, livestock methane.
Okay, coming to that, you said the efficacy persistence is about zero point 0.7 to 0.85. What does that exactly mean?
It's like a uncertainty number that we have put in. You can find more details on standard, but with methane, you don't have an active DMRV. That's one of the challenges because you cannot track
Mhm.
it on every cattle. So we have to put an uncertainty number behind it. That number is zero point 0.7 to 0.85. There is more complexity also doing that with livestock methane. What is the weight of the cattle? What is the species? All of that data sets also need to be put into there. So that's the number I was talking about.
Okay, thank you. That's it. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks, Uncle. I had written in my notes asking you who creates a methodology and why. That kind of answers the question. And to add to that, I think we had done some trials on putting biochar as a cattle bed management, and we have seen that biochar absorbs a lot of uh, urine, cow dung, and it doesn't even let those nitrous oxides get evaporated into the atmosphere. So we always thought there is a methodology in there somewhere, and hopefully one day it should come out. So, cool. Divya, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah. Hi, Abhimanyu. Firstly, great work. Like it was the need of the hour, I guess, having an Indian registry. Like for all the points you mentioned, and just for the cost part of it, like everybody speaks in euros and dollars, so it's good to. Like, I really wish for your success. The question I had is around flat fee. So I understand your point of conflict of interest, but also it's somewhere like subsidizes the cost for a small developer, like because the registry is earning from a big developer, so small developer can pay smaller platform fee and then pay more when the credits start coming in. So
Yeah,
barrier to entry is slower,
yeah,
but if you have a flat fee, the entire fee of registry will be distributed across everyone.
yeah.
So while I agree with there's no conflict of interest, it also makes it harder for small developers, and like if you really want to keep it with the community and all of that, it sort of doesn't make sense there.
Yeah, I will answer this and thank you so much for your appreciation and asking that question. Uh, we did a very deep analysis on how many credits are generated, not just by larger developers in India, but smaller developers too. Our numbers are biased towards India, so I'm only using India as a reference. And we realized that the median is smaller developers. Now, my definition of smaller developers is any developer issuing less than 1,000 credits a year. So the second thing we did is we went to the market and we had our own costs. We knew what our costs and expenses are. We went to the market and we saw what are some numbers for say 1,000 credits a year, not more than that. Uh, and we did our analysis, and the current numbers I'm talking about is even 20% lower at 1,000 credits compared to other standards and registries. Having said all of that, we are also happy to work with smaller developers. We have been thinking of a program of a smaller developer program. And one of the things that we have realized is for smaller developers, again using the same definition, we can occur the cost for a later stage, which means You pay us when you are paid by the buyer instead of paying us upfront. So for DMRV, we can't do that because we have our server costs and we have another cost to pay, tech team costs, etc. But for registry costs for smaller developers, I will repeat this, pay us only when you are paid. Don't pay us before that. So that's something we can offer. I won't get into the names, but the another cheapest available on Biochar right now is somewhere around 8 lakhs plus per credit cost. And then most registries have a per credit cost or a minimum number of credits that need to be generated as an assurance. And that minimum number also now with most of the registries is at 1000 credits. So, and then like I said, there are some costs we can't run away with. So we have to accrue for it. But I hope the accrued part will help you in some sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm. And there's also, I
Anyone?
will quickly just Tejas ask, there's also a matter of skin in the game that is always spoken about. What is the skin in the game for registries or standard registries? You issue the credit was issued on their signs, they went away, and now if the buyer says, hey, your signs is not good, they get paid, then whose problem it is? And that is why this accrued thing also makes sense. That pay us only when you get paid. It could be after a year, it could be after 5 years. We'll figure something out. Yeah.
That
Okay.
makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Abhimanyu, Anant here. I had a follow-up
Yeah.
question to Divya. Maybe a dumb question, or maybe I'm not able to process it. The use of standard is a flat fee. The use of registry is a percentage. The use of DMRV is a percentage. Is that it?
Nothing is percentage. Everything is flat fee. Standard and registry is one common fee, which
Okay.
is at 3 lakh rupees a year. DMRV is again flat fee 3 lakh rupees a year. DMRV is
Okay.
optional, but if you take DMRV, pay it upfront because this is tech cost. Registry for smaller developers, which is defined as 1000 or less credit, we will accrue it. So you pay only when you get paid.
Okay. But you had a scenario where the credit is sold between people, traded and all that. Does
Yeah.
that count as a transaction, or is that a flat, comes under a flat?
That's transaction. There are no costs right now on transactions. You can do multiple transactions. Just report to us. We are not charging you on any transactions right now.
Okay.
So
And you
I will,
also,
I
yeah,
will,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I will repeat this. So if you are a project developer, you sold it to Tejas. You only get, if you're a small project developer, you only pay when you sell it to Tejas and Tejas pays you. Now there are two scenarios. Tejas pays you more than the registry fee. Tejas pays you less than the registry fee. When the amount hits what the registry fees is, pay back to the registry, or else you
Got it.
keep the amount with you for that time. Now
Right.
Tejas sells it to Abhimanyu. So Tejas only has to come and report, hey, I made this transaction. There is no fee behind that right now. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And what is the time frame we are looking at usually? What time frames are you seeing on average?
Yeah, that's a good question. 5 months to be precise. It takes about a month from our experience to do the data collection and PDD creation. It takes another month to do the tech integration, and 3 months is a compulsory monitoring period that we have set. So 5 months to be precise is you get your first credit. After that, it could be monthly or quarterly, depending on your volumes of credit. You can let us know depending on buyer visibility and volumes of credit. Yeah.
Okay, I have another question to top that. Might be a very ticky-tack question. What about Nirmala Sitharaman auntie looking at this and saying, I want to tax this? Is there a GST for this, or how does it work?
No, no, that's a brilliant question again, Anant. Unfortunately, in India, carbon credits are looked as a commodity. So an Indian project developer selling to an Indian buyer attracts GST. But if you sell it to an outside buyer, it's export of services, so there is no GST. So yeah, it's a tricky one. We have made a few submissions. We're trying to navigate this, but looks like a solution is not to be seen very soon. Yeah.
And what about the currency conversions on the same note? Because the currencies could fluctuate. I mean,
Yeah.
it's 5 months later. So how does that work?
So on a spot, which is a spot, so there are two ways in which credits are sold. Spot is somebody coming to you and making an over-the-counter trade. Spot, there is no currency fluctuation because you're making an instantaneous trade. In an offtake, what we advise to the project developer is work with a bank that will hedge your risks. So there are a lot of banks who lock in the currency for say anywhere from 1 month to 12 months. Most of the international banks do this today, even in India, and the Indian banks also started doing that. And that's one way to protect yourself. There is no clear-cut rule, but fortunately or unfortunately, the dollar is going higher than the rupee, so you will end up getting more money for your work rather than lesser. Yeah.
Right. I'll hold off my questions, come back later. We'll just open the floor to people here. And anybody want to ask the questions, please unmute and ask. If you want to ask in Hindi, that is fine too. Abhimanyu is, we're going to do a session in Hindi maybe in a couple of weeks. The whole thing, what we did today, so it reaches a wider audience. So if you want to ask in Hindi today, that's fine. Or you want to hold off a couple of weeks and read the more standard in more detail and come back and ask, that's great too. Bibhishan, if there are any questions in YouTube, Facebook and LinkedIn, please do point out. Sankalp, you had a comment. You can unmute and make the comment if you want. Rajkamal also had asked something. Anybody just, unmute
Yeah.
and ask, please do. Yeah, go ahead, Sankalp.
Yes. Yes. Hi. So Tejas mentioned biochar as a bedding for cattle, right?
Yeah.
So what I have also read is in broiler farming, basically they use rice husk as a bedding material. So if you can replace rice husk by biochar,
Okay.
wouldn't that absorb ammonia, which will not convert to nitrous oxide? Would that basically make it dual credit? Like would there be removal credits as well as avoidance credits together? Because
Okay.
biochar plus avoidance of ammonia into nitrous
Okay.
oxide.
First part of your answer, using my chemical engineering hat because I'm a chemical engineer, looks possible, but there are a couple of things that I will have to better understand. Again, comes to the
Mhm.
adsorption value and regeneration of the biochar and if there is any backwashing component to it. Second part of the question, avoidance and removal depends on the end use of that particular commodity. So once you trapped into, what are you going to do with that substrate? How stable it is and how for how long it is going to be permanently removing, and I'm using the word CO2 and GHG interchangeably over here, but CO2 for a very long time. If it does that for a particular amount of time and say 100 years, then it's removal. If it's not doing that, then it's avoidance or reduction, subject to what is the end use. Because if the N2O is going to be re-released into the atmosphere, and this is very common with biochar substitution with coal, you don't get credits for that because you are re-releasing CO2 into the atmosphere. Based on that, we can decide removal, reduction, or avoidance.
Yeah, just an addition on that, I think we have done
Yeah.
not replacement of rice husk with biochar, but a substitution of biochar in rice husk as a poultry bedding. And very early results were very promising. There were lesser deaths of birds, very little smell out there, and better FCR. There are some papers that said that it's better food to
Correct.
food
Yeah.
consumption. It was very
Sure.
promising, especially the trial that we did. There were two sheds side by side, and we had applied in one and didn't apply in one. And they call it lifting in the birds when
Yeah.
they're big enough to take. The lifting was delayed, and they saw more deaths in the one where we didn't have biochar and very few deaths in the one where they were biochar. So there's a lot of benefits to it. But in the Puro Earth methodology, there's cascading end use for biochar. So if you are
Yeah.
using biochar in any use case that is not a final end use, then you have to give a proof of where it is going next and ensure that it's not incinerated or done anything, especially with poultry manure, because at least in the West, the incineration is a, like a straightforward way
So,
to
yeah.
do excess
Yeah.
nitrate. But yeah, very
Uh, g-
interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
Generally, it goes to the soil. Generally, it goes to the soil. The rice husk.
In Indian
Currently,
context,
it goes. Yeah, in Indian context, yes.
yeah, I think when we are talking about avoidance, then it has to again be co-composted. And what are the emissions during co-composting? A lot of these things will again come into the picture. I'm sure Abhimanyu can add
Yeah.
those.
No, so Puro is very right on what they're doing, and that's exactly how we do at RenewCred. And that's what we spoke about. A lot of this depends on what is the end use of the substrate in itself, and then you need to track it and measure it. So even with our DMRV that I spoke about, with biochar you have to take images of every end use into the soil and report it back to the registry or verifiers for that matter. Same will apply. Same concepts will apply over here as well. Yeah. Also, rice husk is not always the best candidate for biochar. Just putting that out, uh, w- because
Yeah.
Any agriculture substance is nothing but three things: cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. More the lignin, the better is the biochar. That's the most basic theory I can say. Rice husk is not great at lignin, so yeah.
Got it. Got it. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Right.
Hi, Abhimanyu. This is Ranjit. Have you worked, technically worked with different feedstocks, maybe not maybe of agriculture thing? I would be speaking about forestry sort of things like Prosopis, Neltomar, Gilliflora, Lantana camara, other things. And what would be the quality of carbon content in that? And what is the level of greenhouse gas or air pollutant emissions that vary during biochar production across different feedstocks and pyrolysis technologies, what we spoke about, like industrial, artisanal, mid-tech. So can you just tell about it? That would be also a very informative. You
Floriferous
have given a lot of
Jurifera, we have done a lot. We have a few projects in Gujarat. We call it the Gando Bawal over there. It's one of the most common feedstock which is being used to produce biochar. Goes back to the previous answer I said. The more the lignin component, the better is the biochar quality. Emissions is a subject of the technology you use, industrial versus mid-tech versus artisanal. Um, what else can I add? We have worked with about 7 or 8 feedstock types. We have not covered all the feedstock types because that is more subjected to the project developer submitting the sample versus we doing some analysis. There's also a problem with homogeneous versus heterogeneous feedstock. With homogeneous feedstock, it is far more easier to calculate, but a lot of project developers talk about MSW as a feedstock for biochar. Right now with RenewCred standards, we are not working on that. Someday we will be able to do that too. So answering your question, 7, 8 feedstocks, yes. More lignin, better feedstock. Emission is a subject of tech. Homogeneous versus heterogeneous.
Yeah. Thank you. And one more thing, have you worked with any government, like any state government on this aspect? Like,
Yeah. So there's a society there's an institution with Chandigarh Smart City called CREST. We are doing solar credits, carbon credits for them. Speaking with a couple of governments, I can't name them right now till the agreements are signed, but trying to figure that out. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
One question I would like to sneak in, Abhimanyu, if
This is Rajkamal. Can I jump
Rajkumar.
in?
Yeah. Go ahead, Rajkumar.
It's related to what Ranjit asked. So, have you published any paper on the lignin content and the other like potential GHG gases apart from carbon on any of the natural feedstocks? Say, for example, some of the invasive species that Ranjit mentioned.
Okay. A lot of our work is now part of the standard, and a lot of the standard footnotes and the standard body speaks about how we have evaluated the feedstock. I get where you're coming from. It's a very good idea. I think feedstock versus technology versus emission measurement, we can release a few white papers on that. We'll work on that and do something around that.
So I'm
We haven't
open to
released a white paper.
collaborating because we are doing this project in Karnataka,
Yeah.
and it's like end-to-end restoration project. Biochar becomes a very useful component in it in terms of providing some sort of income to the community, but also gain credits. So there is some validity of the project, the whole project itself. It raises the bar, I guess. So I'm from a institute called Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and the Environment, based out of Bangalore. If you can share your email, I'll be happy to write to you after this call.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm also based out of Bangalore. So my email ID is very simple: AR for Abhimanyu Rathi @renewcred.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find my phone number, WhatsApp me, email me. Everything is completely fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rajkumar. Thanks, Ranjit, for your questions. Abhimanyu, I wanted to sneak in one last from my side. So there's this transition that needs to happen for every project developer. There probably are enough project developers out there that are waiting for an Indian standard registry to come out and see when is the best time to switch or support a local initiative. So how does the double counting or anything work? Can a project developer be with one standard, keep their usual thing going, have the same thing MRV'd with RenewCred, but just wait and see, watch, and and switch from there to here. So how does the ethics and technicalities work here?
Yeah. Two things on this. First is we also believe that a lot of project developers want to work with an Indian standard registry, but the project developers still have this, and that could be rightly so, that other standards are already out there for a very long time. So we'll wait and watch how RenewCred performs before starting to work with them. So intent is there, but action is still coming into picture, and we have to do a lot of work behind that. On double counting, not just RenewCred, most standard and registries are very clear. Double counting is not allowed. All the projects are going to be live with RenewCred and already live with all the registries on their websites. There are a lot of institutions that have come up now. One example is the CAT Trust, where the registries submit their project level data and it is cross-verified whether the same project was registered with multiple standard or registries or not. With RenewCred, because we are slightly skewed more towards non-engineered projects versus engineered projects versus nature-based or non-nature-based more. For us, every quantity or every industrial machine or every EV is an asset, and we give it an internal IMEI number. So if the same project, another project developer tries to register the same asset, the system will not even accept it in the first place. So a bit of a technology, a bit of these institutions, a bit of public transparency, all three are working together. Having said that, it's not completely solved for, but project developers understand if they do this, then they won't survive a lot longer in the market. So yeah, yeah.
So that means the project developer at some point has to switch to RenewCred and
Optionally, if they want to continue with whatever the registry is completely fine. We are not forcing anybody. But if they have to switch, then yeah, they will have to tell the current registry, hey, we are switching over to another registry. And same applies to RenewCred's current customers also. Customer might not be the correct word, but climate positive warriors also. If they want to switch over to another registry, they can free to do that. Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you. Anant?
Yeah, I had a question on the social impact measurement. You had talked about
Yeah.
SDG, because a lot of it is qualitative. And, you said we had a dashboard, we will have a dashboard where we can track that. I mean, are you aiming for any specific? I mean, there's no sensor I can fit anywhere. So how do you explain that a bit? Because I'm really on the social impact side, a not-profit working in the community. So how do
Yeah.
I do that? That was the one question. Second question is, it seems to be we are going towards biodiversity credits. We are going towards some ecosystem services. We have heard that word being thrown about now. It's still in a lot of early stages at the moment. So have you encountered any of this while you're looking ahead where this is headed?
Yeah, yeah. So on the social impact measurement, that's been the most trickiest challenge, one of the most trickiest challenges for us, because at early stage, how do you even account for social impact? We are trying to write a few frameworks, which is nothing but a bunch of questions we ask the project developer and then come to an understanding what SDG goals they are trying to meet. One of the things we have at RenewCred also is, hey, please meet at least 3 SDGs. If you have planned for it right now or you're already accounting for it, that's much better. Social impact also affects the price of the credit in some sense. The more impact, it's not just the carbon emission, but buyers are looking at other reasons also to buy the credits. So few frameworks are being put, few questions. With some projects, it is quite straightforward. You do a water filtration project, obviously there is SDG 7 that is covered, which is water. I see 6 or 7 that's covered. With solar, there is power. With some, there are not. So bunch of questions, self-declaration, stakeholder interviews, some data is submitted, and then we come to an understanding. Nothing bulletproof right now. Yeah. Second part of the question, sorry, I forgot your question.
The biodiversity credits and the ecosystem,
Sure.
where it's evolving,
Yeah, yeah. So a
Yeah.
lot of terms are thrown around, and this is just for our understanding. AFLOU, blue carbon, biodiversity, and then we have green credits in India, which is a government mandated project. Then you had water credits, and you have rubber credits, and you have plastic credits under EPR. We, from a scientific point of view, we don't look at them differently. For us, everything is an asset that is saving or reducing carbon emissions. We build the science behind it and then we account for the credits of it. That's the process we follow. But yeah, a lot of work is happening on what we call ecosystem credits, built environment credits, blue carbon credits. So This enables scientists or experts to put themselves under bracket and build their own knowledge pool around it, I think, which is again important in its own way. Yeah.
Right. Got it. And why did you pick these 7 methodologies? I don't know if you've covered it. What are the reason to pick these 7 to start with and
Yeah.
not some others? And what are you looking at in the near time frame? What is the time frame for the other ones?
Yeah. So we picked this up because our bet, which continues to be right now, is to focus more on non-nature based to begin with, because there is more data trail behind it, and buyers want a lot of data, and this is also impacts how RenewCred as a company evolves, because we have to issue the credits and get buyers to make the momentum going. So we started with EV because it's what's the most complex from a technological point of view. Any project developer will have 100, 200, 2000 vehicles also. Tracking every one of them in real time and issuing credits is a challenge in itself. Then we moved to biochar for the most obvious reason. 87% of removals is biochar. And like I said, India is going through its renaissance period in biochar. Well, we have been doing biochar for 5,000 years now. But okay, carbon credits right now. And then we moved to more India specific stuff. And that's how CBG happened. Solar also happened. I know solar has gone through its own additionality claims here and there, but we felt there's still scope to be transparent about it. So we picked up these based on technology, product development, plus the market size available, plus how many people we can serve. So that's how it was. Yeah.
Okay. Last question. Is the sensors what I get from you for the DMRV? Do you ship an extra sensor if something fails? Because the Indian environment is quite harsh. How do we account for the downtime if something happens? Is there if there's a standard has this for downtime as we encountered in Indian settings? Or do we
Yeah.
always have to have an extra sensor, which is an extra cost for me as a project developer? Very
Yeah.
specific question. Yeah.
Most sensors, like I said, are very cost friendly. You can have maybe not one, but two or three, depending on your scale of the project also. We don't
Okay.
manufacture the sensors ourselves. We are not
Okay.
a sensor company. We tie up with vendors. We will transparently let you know, please go and buy from this vendor. In
All
some
right.
cases, because we have to inbuild or customize it depending on the size, we help with the customization. We are not a sensor company. Yeah.
Right. One more last question. Sorry, they've got a long list. We ran out of time, but I'm just greedy here. In the US, the registries are funded by venture capitalists and all that. When you see the standard has to last a long time, so you said there's a council that will operate the standard. Does that become a public good, like a trust or something it goes under, whereas the
Yeah.
registry and the DMRV goes towards the for-profit, orientation?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
No,
that how you see it?
and that's a question I've keep asking myself at least every night, once every night. So the two main registries, and I can name them now, Vera and Gold Standard, which occupy 92% of the market, are non-profits. They are not
Okay.
backed by venture capitalists. But the newer registries, now Isometric just did another raise of $40 million. Cumulative, they've crossed $70 million. These are backed by VC firms. We are backed by VC firms, no, not VC, but angels for that matter. So sometimes the financial incentives tend to be differently positioned when you raise capital to build something like this. So, will it be a public good in the near term? I think we are quasi public good because all our standards are in public domain. And I started my presentation by requesting you to comment on it. So, we are quasi public good. Will we act as a non profit? We would have loved to do that, but that won't allow us to scale. That won't allow us to build the infrastructure we want to build. That is why we are VC backed, and that is why we have some kind of different businesses also. DMRV is different, and science is different, and some of the science cost is paid by the DMRV cost. So that's how we are
Right,
positioned.
right, right. Got it. Thanks a lot. We'll save the questions for the Hindi version because,
Yeah,
we can ask some of those questions in different languages. Something unique to India, we should appreciate that we can do multiple languages and
yeah.
catch you in another language, if not English,
नहीं नहीं
But anyway, over to you.
मेरी
हाँ,
हिंदी मेरी अंग्रेजी से ज़्यादा दुरुस्त है। अंग्रेजी
it
मेरे
is
लिए
going to
दूसरी
be a
भाषा है,
jog,
हिंदी
man.
मेरी
Yes,
मातृभाषा है। तो
right.
मेरे ख्याल से आज़ादी दिवस के वाले दिन अगर हम ये बात करेंगे हिंदी में तो और मज़ा आएगा।
Over to you, Tejas. Thanks a lot, Abhimanyu. See you again for Hindi. Go ahead,
थैंक यू।
Tejas. And your last round of questions, if anybody want to ask questions, please do unmute yourself and ask.
I think
Um,
we're gonna close it and
all
let
right.
people ask Abhimanyu on the email or in the next session.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, no,
good.
actually put it in the chat box for the curiosity of everybody. But yeah, feel free to reach me out anywhere. If you're calling me, but just WhatsApp works better for me. And that's my phone number. That's my
Abhimanyu,
email
we have to
ID.
read it out because there are people in
Ah,
YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook that can't read the chat box. I'll just read it out for them. 9925 629 000. Again, 9925 629 000. That's Abhimanyu's WhatsApp, and you can send him a WhatsApp, and he'll be able to get back. All right. Okay, over to you, Tejas.
Yes, and his email is ar@renewcred.com. I repeat that, ar@renewcred.com. Wonderful. Thanks, Abhimanyu. I mean, we've covered a lot in this call, and thanks for patiently taking all the questions and answering those. Anything that you would want to tell the Shekru TV or the audience watching this?
yeah, just one important thing. Don't do it. Don't save the world for carbon credits. Don't save the world because we want to save the world. It sounds sexy. It will give us validation. Don't do it for all of that. Do it for your personal joy, for your personal passion and ikigai, that you really are doing something substantial that will allow our coming generations to live longer, peacefully, and happily. Carbon credit is just a viability gap funding, nothing else. And I'm saying this in spite of carbon credit being my bread and butter for the time being, but don't do it for that. Do what you want to do, build a community. We are building a community, more people coming together. We will last longer. So that's all I can say. And as Carl Sagan says, Earth is the only planet we have ever known. So let's come together and save it until we figure out a way to reach Mars.
That's great. Yeah, let's save the pale blue dot. Thanks a lot, Abhimanyu. And would love to have you again back on August 15th, doing this in Hindi. And we wish you all a very good luck and a lot of strength in this journey. Very
Thank you so
exciting to see Indian standard registry take a jab at uh, this whole field, for the
much.
lack of better word. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you. Have a
everyone.
great evening ahead.
Thank you, everyone, from joining us. And we'll have Abhimanyu back on August 15th, talking in Hindi, doing almost the same session. We would love to have him back to talk about many, many more things in depth, and we'll slowly plan those. Thanks, Abhimanyu. Thanks a lot. Have a good rest of the day.
You
And
too.
thanks, everyone, for joining.